You are listening to UC3P's The Forum. In a special collaboration with the Asian Policy Forum, or APF, we will discuss contemporary issues emerging from Asia, published in the Asian Policy Forum's Silk Journal. I am presenter Ben Huynh.
And I'm Prarthna Iyer.
We are pleased to welcome Surya Hardiansyah, full-time MPP student, full-time father, and full-time Indonesian national, who wrote this recent Silk Journal article titled Steering the Future South China Sea, Geopolitical Dynamics from Past Perspectives. Welcome, Surya.
Thanks for having me, Ben, Prarthna.
Could you tell us a little bit about what you wrote?
My article examines how Indonesia and Vietnam were enhancing cooperation in the South China Sea through diplomacy and green investments, such as electric vehicles or EVs. In early 2024, Indonesian President Joko Widodo visited Vietnam, leading to agreements aimed at boosting sustainability, trade, and maritime collaboration. This initiative showcased ASEAN's proactive approach, emphasizing green growth and regional unity over conflict. However, as we see now, a year later, these efforts are yielding tangible results. Indonesia and Vietnam are nearing the ratification of a maritime boundary agreement, resolving a dispute that has persisted for over a decade. Concurrently, Vietnam's VinFast, that's a brand of the vehicle, has exported 2,500 EVs to Indonesia and plans to install up to 100,000 charging stations across the country, illustrating how regional cooperation and green industry are reshaping Asia's economic landscape.
Surya, could you tell us, before we jump into the content of the article itself, what is it that piqued your interest in this topic? Why did you write an article about this versus all of the other issues that we could have written about?
Well, I'm actually writing anything about Association of Southeast Asian Nations, especially Indonesia, Singapore, the Philippines, and their surrounding and neighboring countries. But this issue here, which is already standing for a long time, it's a long-standing issues between ASEAN and their surrounding country. And I am interested in giving the reader the update about this problem that might give more enlightenment to them so they can know how is the update of this.
Thank you for the summary, Surya. I want to start off with a question. In your opinion, why has the territorial issues related to the South China Sea gone on for this long?
Well, the enduring disputes stem from overlapping claims, particularly China's assertion of historical rights conflicting with the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or for short, UN clause, which ASEAN countries uphold. Here, I need to differentiate between Asian and ASEAN. So, forget about the Asian. The one that I'm talking about is ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, in short. The enduring disputes stem from overlapping claims, particularly China's assertion of historical rights conflicting with the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UN clause, which ASEAN countries uphold. ASEAN's consensus-driven approach has often hindered swift resolution. However, recent developments indicate progress. Indonesia and Vietnam's advancement toward finalizing their exclusive economic zone, or EEZ, agreement demonstrates that bilateral commitment can effectively address long-standing disputes.
So, in your article, you mentioned the basis of the two competing claims. On the one hand, China's long historical presence in the waterways, and on the other hand, the UN's Convention on the Law of the Sea. Do you think one claim weighs heavier than the other?
Actually, the weight of each claim varies depending on perspectives. China emphasizes its historical presence in the South China Sea, while ASEAN nations, including Indonesia and Vietnam, advocate for UNCLOS principles. The influence of these claims is also shaped by international support and geopolitical dynamics. In recent years, there has been a subtle shift toward UN clause adherence. The impending Indonesia-Vietnam EEZ agreement underscores a preference for international law. Conversely, tensions have escalated elsewhere. Notably, in June 2024, A confrontation at Second Thomas Shoal resulted in injuries to Filipino personnel. And in April 2025, both China and the Philippines accused each other of aggressive maneuvers near Scarborough Shoal. In response, the US has increased its military presence in the region, conducting joint exercises with the Philippines and re-establishing a presence at Subic Way.
Thank you so much. Just for us to understand, could you help us understand on a deeper level what the stake is here, economically speaking?
Well, the South China Sea is vital for trade routes, fisheries, and potential energy resources. Bilateral agreements like the EV partnership between Vietnam and Indonesia can influence regional trade dynamics and attract green technology investments. VinFast, for example, has been expanding into Indonesia exemplifies this trend. Amid global trade tensions, such as the US imposing tariffs on various countries, there's a growing emphasis on strengthening intra-ASEAN trade and reducing reliance on traditional supply chains.
China's influence has grown considerably in recent years and certainly will grow even more in the region as the US places greater emphasis on domestic concerns. How do you think that that's going to affect the conversations on the South China Sea?
China's assertiveness and the US shifting priorities compel ASEAN nations to balance relations carefully. Vietnam, for instance, is enhancing defense and economic ties with the US while maintaining regional collaborations. The EV sector plays a role here, with Vietnam positioning itself as a key player in the supply chain, attracting interest from countries seeking to diversify their resources for critical minerals and components.
ASEAN has tried to advocate for a collective framework along with China to resolve this, though.
Correct. Progress has been limited. While ASEAN and China resumed Code of Conduct negotiations in April 2025, incidents like the Scarborough Shoal confrontation indicate ongoing challenges. In contrast, bilateral agreements such as the Indonesia-Vietnam EEZ deal demonstrate that individual initiatives can yield more immediate results, suggesting that while ASEAN's collective efforts continue, parallel bilateral engagements are crucial for regional stability.
Thank you so much, Surya, for that really insightful discussion on your article. And thank you to the listeners for listening in to this special episode of the forum. If you like what you heard, drop us a like and comment wherever you listen to your podcasts. Find out more about the UC3P and the APF, including links to the Silk Journal, in our show notes.
This has been your host, Ben Huynh.
And I'm Prarthna Iyer, signing off for today.